And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the LFC Transfer Room. My name is Lewis, and I'm joined today by Alan, Dean, and Carter. Alan's first stream, so if anyone's got any questions or anything they want to ask him, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and we will get to them at the end of the stream for the final 15 minutes for the Q&A. And just before we get into the topics today, guys, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Really, really close to 10k subs. Say it every stream, because it's going to happen. We're going to get 10k by Christmas, so let's make that happen. I think we're about 200 away. Easy. We can do that. How's everyone doing? All good?
Yeah, very good. 3 points in the bag, so all good.
3 points in the bag, 3 goals, clean sheet. Not really many poor topics to really discuss. We're just going to go over a bit of the game today. We've also got news on Andre. Apparently, Liverpool are stepping out of of the discussions with him. We're looking at alternatives, so we'll get onto all that in this stream. But please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. And the first topic, Alan, I'll start with you. Nice 3-0 win, nice clean sheet against the Brentford side, who coming off a 3-game winning streak. I mean, that's the perfect way to go into the international break, surely.
Yeah, I think when I went to today's game and I saw the starting lineup, and most importantly, I saw the bench and there was no one there really. It felt to me today it was, let's just win at any cost and get to international break. If it was a 1-0 fluky own goal, I'll take it. I think these sort of games, you just need to get through them, get the points, and worry about later on. But I thought overall performance was quite good. I thought a couple of times at the back we were a little bit, took our chances a little bit. They had 1 or 2 chances themselves, but I thought overall we were relatively in control all the way through.
I mean, Dean, I'll move this one to you. Like Alan said there, at the back we did take our chances, but I mean, over the past few seasons, like the almost quadruple season, the season we won the league, there were a few moments where the opposition team got through 1-1, or they had an opportunity they really should have scored. Like, this isn't something new to us, but just overall happy with the performance, or do you think we could have done more at the back to sort of nullify Brentford?
Oh, you thought, well, you heard my thoughts yesterday. We were pessimistic, weren't we? We were a bit concerned going into this game with the lack of options we had, and it was even worse when the team news came out. It was bare bones FC 1-2. It was literally an 11 and a couple of dudes on the bench that we could rely on, like Gomez being out. It was an option we discussed at left back yesterday. Obviously, couldn't happen. Canate, which was the big, like, oh dear, he's out. Matic gets thrown in. But to be fair, Tsimikas stepped up. Arguably, I'd say his best game for us, definitely in recent memory anyway. Matic played pretty well. I was a bit concerned he was going to be up against Vista and Mbemo. But to be fair, they played pretty well. The second half, we did drop off a little bit, but we were 2-0 up or 3-0 up at that point, so it's half expected. The midfield really shone, considering Gakpo was in there. We discussed him yesterday as well. I couldn't really have asked of any more for the lads. I was really, really concerned, especially when the team news come out, that this was going to be a really tough game. Yes, they did have a few chances early on, but we could have had 3, 4. Well, we had 2 goals disallowed. We're offside from Nunes. We just took our chances, and they didn't take theirs. It's simple. It came down to that.
I mean, you mentioned Nunes there, and we will get onto him shortly. But Carter, I mean, I'll put to you, like, obviously that was a midfield that no one really particularly wanted going into this game. It's just our hands were tied. Is there anyone you thought we were missing today, or do you think that there was never a moment where you thought, oh God, we miss McAllister, or oh God, we miss like Badge-Tich or something? Do you think that midfield stepped up to the challenge?
I think if we'd have played a team that maybe came and pressed us a bit more, I think we would have missed a Jones or someone instead of Gakpo. But I think because Brentford sat so far back, I felt they didn't press us too much. I felt that kind of allowed us to have Gakpo on almost as like a fourth attacker, although he was dropping quite far back. But the only thing I'd say was it's just we have no alternative. It's like Endo, honestly, when he didn't have the ball, he was playing with like ankle weights on or something. Like he was so late to every challenge. Like we were really lucky not to have 10. Like that was 2 games where if you look at some of the other challenges that have gone in the last few weeks, that is there's going to be given as a red. So I think we were quite lucky there, because you can imagine if we concede to Mbemo and then he does a challenge like that, we're 10 men and we're trying to get points again. Like, so it was good. Like, it's really nitpicky, but I think just off ball he wasn't the best. I was impressed on ball. Like, I think he did some good bits. There was a bit where he dropped the shoulder on, was it Norgard or Jensen, which was quite impressive, and he did some nice switches of play. But I just think winning his tackles, that was one of the issues with us having them running at us a few times.
Yeah, I do. I completely agree with what you're saying there, and I think Endo's sort of putting a lot of fear in some fans. And Alan, I'll give this one to you next because you mentioned there obviously earlier on that you went to the ground. What was the atmosphere like when Endo put in that tackle? I mean, were there people saying, "Look, off, he's just not good enough," or was there a lot of people sort of maybe thinking, it was a bit soft? Like, what was the sort of feeling towards Endo in that moment?
Well, from where I was, it just looked like it was a 50-50 between two guys who both went in for the ball, and our guy just happened to catch their guy. On the day he catches our guy, it didn't feel like, oh my God, he's done him. Not at all. The fans weren't too pleased with the referee anyway, so he was getting slaughtered no matter what he was going to do. So whether the referee let us off a little bit, I don't know. I've not seen it back. I'll be honest, I don't know what it looked like on TV. So I don't. Did it look like a foul? Did it look like a red card? What did we think?
Like he pulled out a little bit. Like he did go in studs up, but it looked like he sort of pulled up at the last second and tried to sort of cushion the blow a bit.
Yeah, because it looked like this is from sitting in the cop, so I can't tell, but it didn't look like he didn't go above ball height. It was like on the ground. So you got to kind of put your stud showing. You can't slide with it's impossible. So it looked like to me that both guys have just gone in, and because they come from different angles together, one was always going to catch the other. That was always how it is, and it's a contact sport. So I didn't think in the ground it was a red card. I thought, free kick. You might get a yellow for it, but I didn't think, oh my God, he's done him. He should be off. But so they more in the referee's case, regardless, because it's Paul Tierney. So that's that, really.
Yeah, I mean, Dean, what's your thoughts on it? I mean, we've seen in the past. I mean, it's nice for once that the decision sort of, and I'm not doing the whole woe is us thing, but obviously the decision went with us today. And we've seen earlier in the season, Malo Gusto for Chelsea got sent off for the same sort of similar tackle. I mean, it's what's your thoughts on it? Do you think it should have been a red, or are you happy with how it went?
Obviously, I'm really happy with how it went, but in the modern game, it is a very thin line between strong challenge and a reckless challenge. He's lucky he doesn't go in with a lack of control. If he flies in the air a tiny bit, he's gone. He just goes to ground and he doesn't. I don't think he keeps his legs straight either, does he? He just kind of collides and then they kind of scrunch up together. I don't know if that saves him as well.
Yeah.
He does kind of win the ball. The good thing is the ref's right in front of it. I think VAR took that into account as well. Because if he wasn't, they would have said, go have a look at the screen then. But he was right there about, 5 yards away, staring at it. So I think that's what saved him. I do agree with Carter. He was a yard off the pace. He lost all of his ground duels today. That could be through positioning and blocking passing lanes. But when he has tried to get stuck in, he did lose virtually all the time. That was a concern.
I mean, like you touched on there, obviously, on the ground today, Endo didn't. We discussed yesterday, he just doesn't seem to have the sort of pace to keep up with the Premier League at the moment. He struggled against Bournemouth. He was always going to struggle against Brentford. And Carter, Endo's came in purely because we don't have enough depth there at the moment because of injuries, suspensions, etc. I mean, he reminds me at times of Lucas Leiva, where he's just a yellow card waiting to happen, Endo, the way he plays. And Virgil says we need to pick up our rhythm from today, when we go to the Etihad, which is our next game. Is Endo getting anywhere near that team against Man City, or are we going back to the McAllister way of things against a Man City team who, let's face it, they are the best in the world? How do we go about that after that performance today?
I think personally, was it last year where we played sort of 4-4-2? I'd really like us to almost do that again and just not leave ourselves open to passing out stupidly or being a bit wasteful in possession. I think we should sit back, counter attack, play Salah sort of off Nunes, and just keep those two as close to the goal as possible. Because also then you can maybe get away with Jones and Szoboszlai as your 2/8s, as your two midfielders. Like, was it Newcastle we went down to 10 men, or was it, I can't remember, where they sort of played as like a bit of a pivot and the 8s as well by themselves. I think that probably, maybe you put in Gravenberch. I think we need two of Jones, Szoboszlai and Gravenberch just to deal with the pace and the speed. But I don't know. I could see Klopp playing him just because sometimes you don't want to swap it. You just want to play to what you know. Like, if we lose, everyone's going to go, oh, why don't we just try and beat them? But so I feel it's probably 50-50 if he plays.
Yeah, I mean, Alan, what's your thoughts? Oh, I asked you before about what the opinion was around the ground about Endo, but what's your? We've seen him now for a good few games, and this comment, Endo got the ball first and foremost, force-wise. Yeah, I agree with that. But what's your feeling on Endo at the moment? I mean, look, he's not come in like, if Caicedo had come in for the price that we paid for him, there'd be a lot more expectation and a lot more criticism if he was doing as poor as Endo is. But obviously, he's coming for 20 million. Are we sort of expecting too much from him, or do you think he's performing to the sort of level that a lot of people would expect for the player that we brought in?
I think it's because we're comparing to, really, because he came in the back that we didn't go and buy a Caicedo or even a Lavia, or never saw play before. Because he was like, who is he? No one knows who he is. We've got to remember the job he's been asked to do, really, for the guy who's number 6 in this Liverpool team, he's just a spoiler. His job is just to spoil, break play up and give it to the players who go and dictate and do the stuff. But he just at the moment doesn't quite seem like fast enough. But we can all accept him, I think, because we know he's not going to be the long-term future. I think in January, whether we go and get an Andre or someone else, that might be the case. But I think he is going to be someone who is just there, really designed to just try and stop other teams basically breaking onto us. Like, you look at the Luton game away from home when it was Harvey Elliott. Now, I think if that's Endo, they don't score. Endo brings them down, where Harvey Elliott wasn't streetwise, but strong enough in that particular moment in time. But the number 6 for Liverpool, because Fabinho was great at it, that he was really tall and really lanky, really. He used to break play up. Rodri does the thing for City, but obviously he's exceptional at it. He breaks play up. You saw today, he got a yellow card against Cole Palmer. They were breaking, he just fouled them. And that's what Endo does for us, but obviously because he's quite small and, in stature, it doesn't look as good as when someone bigger doing it, because they look a bit more powerful. But I think he's an okay little player, but will be a squad player at best. He's not going to be a starting 11, but you can never have enough players in your squad who can do something. And, he's just the guy you'd imagine if you go to City and we happen to be winning with 10 minutes to go, you throw him on, say, right, you just sit in front of the back four and go and watch Foden and just man-mark him. That type of stuff, I think.
Would you say he's that sort of that James Milner role of he just sort of comes on when you need to grind the game out?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he's the one you do 10 minutes to go, you win by 2-1, you're up. Just bring him on to potentially just try and see the game out and just stop them. Because the one thing that I think Liverpool still got a problem with is when teams counter on us. Because we have load the ball most of the times. When teams counter on us, that's one thing that we're kind of short of, because we haven't got the pace and the base of midfield. Like McAllister, as good as he is slow at turning. We need someone now. I don't think Endo's particularly fast, but I think he's a little bit more streetwise than what McAllister in terms of just like tactical fouling, which nothing wrong with that, I don't think, in the modern day game.
I love a tactical foul. I think it's one of the best things you can have in a team. I know it sounds a bit daft, but
yeah,
City do it perfectly. John Stones is the master of it, of committing a tactical foul. And there's comments, and Dean, we discussed this yesterday, people comparing Endo to Fabinho. People need to remember that when Fabinho came in, he was 23, 24, around about that age when we signed him. He had more room to grow, whereas Endo is in his 30s. He's not necessarily coming in to be the world beater CDM. Like Alan said, he's the rotation squad player. Like, there's not a lot of expectation. And, there's nothing wrong with that. But we'll go from one player who disappointed, so to speak, today, to one player who was out of this world, and that's Virgil van Dijk. I mean, Van Dijk actually engaged and got me emotional a lot. I mean, he's back to his best. It does look like Van Dijk is back up there with the best in the world. How do you think he performed today?
Well, simple as he's back to the best we could hope for. I don't think he'll ever get to that Ballon d'Or second best player in the world that he got at the time. But he's nearly 32. He doesn't look it. He doesn't act it. I think having the captaincy's really reignited that passion, that desire to get back to his best since his injury, especially. He was everywhere, but in a good way. Obviously, he intercepted everything, won all his challenges, won all his duels. He did clear one off the line as well when we were 3-0 up, preserving that clean sheet for Alisson. It gives me some hope that we've got the old Van Dijk back to a point. It's crazy. You go back 12 months ago, obviously all the other fans were calling him a fraud. He was nowhere near what he was. We had our concerns to a point, but we knew there was still a player in there, and now we're starting to see the fruits of that finally, whether that was through just getting the captaincy or whether it is now he's actually got a midfield in front of him again. It just seems to have brought him back. So, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because I will be the first to admit I've been a bit of a Van Dijk skeptic this season because to me, while he's looked fantastic, he has looked slower. He has looked a bit off the pace at times. Do you think he's adapted his game to the sort of the way John Terry started playing towards the end of his Chelsea career, where he's lost his legs a bit, but mentally he's so switched on? And considering that Matip was next to him, and he's still, he was not the most physically active player at times. I mean, just how intelligent was Van Dijk's play today? Is there any moments that sort of stuck out to you that really made you think, God, he is back to it?
There was only one moment where he had to break a sweat. Was it in Burma was in on goal and he knocks him off, where Matip loses his position and ends up covering the other side. But other than that, like you said, the only ever criticism he's ever had in the past was he was very lackadaisical in the sense of, I've got pace, I can cover, I could just go and get it, it's fine. I do think now he's more aware that he's probably lost a yard of pace. And he's more aware of what's around him because he has to be. And I think that's played into our hands to a point, and it's made him engage tactically with his awareness. But he's still got that pace. Not quite there as it was before, but he still has pace and he still has that strength, and he's using it really well at the moment.
Me, Carter, would you agree? Do you think that Van Dijk's... Do you think he's just changed his game? Like, are we setting the sort like... Trying to think how to phrase this. Have we sort of built this expectation of Van Dijk up in our head that now, because he's a different player, because obviously he's older and he's had the injury, that maybe we're just not looking at him in the same way? Like, do you think he's just as good, but in a different way, if that makes sense? Like, mentally he's a bit more switched on, but physically he's a bit slower?
I think he probably isn't as sort of lightning quick, but I think the issue was sort of he's had big injuries and this whole setup around him's got worse and he's had less protection. Like, if you think how many times before you'd see Van Dijk defend maybe 5, 6, 7 times a game. Now he defends 20 times. And realistically, if you're defending that much, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get caught out. This is probably, like, out of all the seasons he's been here, like, how many years is it now? What, 5, 6, I want to say?
6. He joined in 2017.
This is probably, out of all the defensive sort of setups, is probably the fourth best. And he's obviously got worse. Like, he's going to get worse. But at the same time, you look, as we were talking about the game before, you look at how good Thiago Silva was at 38. Sometimes he just has to adapt. Like, I would happily have Van Dijk stay here till 7 more years, 8 more years. Like, because he's not going to have to cover so much. Like, it's not like Milner and Fabinho where you're running 10, 12K a game intensely. Van Dijk sprints maybe 5 or 6 times. Like, I think it's good what we're seeing because it allows us to go and just build the defense, but we maybe don't have to go and overpay on someone who's 25. Maybe we can still go for someone who's 20 and sort of grow them into the team. rather than having to get Levi Colwell, who's going to be obviously not now, but he was going to be 80, 100 million, we can go and get someone who's much younger, who's only maybe emerging in France or in Scotland like Van Dijk was.
Is there anyone you'd like to see? Maybe, like you said, just bring in like 20-year-old, like we've seen with Kwanzaa. Would you like to see maybe Kumetio get his chance, or maybe Sepp Vandenberg? I mean, how do you think that'd go?
I think Kometio probably isn't. He's not playing top flight football, I don't think. But I think Vandenberg's quite interesting because he can play right back. He's played right wing back in the Championship for Preston, and he's played for Schalke. So I think he's probably an interesting one where maybe he takes on like a Nat Phillips-esque role as sort of a backup and a bit of cover. Because I'd probably rather him than one of the younger lads, like maybe him at right back, sort of playing how Gomez plays, instead of maybe a Chambers or a Calvin Ramsey or one of those guys. I wouldn't mind to maybe give him a try. Maybe not centre half, maybe more right back.
Well, I mean, everything's been said that can possibly be said about Van Dijk as a player and as a leader, but how have you felt he's been as a captain this season? Because obviously, I look at it in my mind as there's two types of captains. There's the ones who shout and coordinate, and there's the ones who lead by example. I mean, what would you say? How would you say Van Dijk's performed as a captain of Liverpool this season, as opposed to how good he is as a player?
I think he's a great captain. I kind of felt he always kind of was the captain in a sense, because Liverpool had like 3 or 4 of them in the one team. Okay, Henderson had the armband on, but Van Dijk was the guy who led the defence, and nothing's changed. And that's a good thing. I think with Klopp's teams, he has so many sort of players who are sort of captain material. Obviously, we've got a few people who captain a country. So the only difference is Van Dijk's got the armband on. That's pretty much how I see it. But what I like him, obviously, we see this huddle at the start of the game now, which kind of seems to get everyone a bit more involved, it gets the crowd a bit more riled up. From all reports, that was his idea, which obviously is something he stood a long time ago. But it just, to me, I just think he's quite a calming figure generally anyway. But you kind of see him now be a little bit more, talkative, even more so than normal, which is a good sign of a captain, I think, because I don't think it's affecting his game, because his game, obviously, this season really gone back to the level it was a couple of years ago, just knocked down the pace from 99 to 98, potentially. But he's still that great player, and you could see he's got that responsibility, and you could see, obviously, what happened with Newcastle when he got sent off. You could see how personally he took that. He realised he messed up, because he's the guy who's trying to leave an example. And I think in that game, he's probably tried to overdo it in that particular match. Whereas I think maybe if he wasn't captain, he would have just defended normally. So I think he is trying to take a lot more responsibility on his shoulders, especially when he's got certain players around him, especially if like Kwanzaa was playing, or, to try and carry Matip maybe potentially. But I think this season he's done really, really well. I think the captaincy is taking his game to another level, but on a different scale, just based on ability alone.
It's interesting that you mentioned like the players around him, because he gives me that Sami Hyypiä vibe of there's players around him who just aren't quite up to it. Obviously, I know he had Carragher and John Arisa and Finnan and stuff, but there was also Jimmy Traore's in there, So he's got that sort of, he makes everyone around him better because he's there. So
yeah, and I think as well, because obviously he's the big centre half. When you mentioned Sammy, Sam's one of my favourite defenders. I know everyone says Carragher being a side, but I love Sammy. He's like the first defender I loved, really. And because he was the size of him. And I remember the game away to Chelsea. Sammy, if he was on the end of his career then, and we were winning 1-0, and it's like they would throw everyone forward. And it's like, right, so Sammy on. And he just edited everything out. He just did what his job was. I think Van Dijk's got that in him. He think, well, what do I need to do? I'll just go and do it. But the minute he's still got all his pace and his reading the game is second to none. And he was like the one, I think Dean mentioned before, when Brewer ran through, he just thought, nah, mate, I'll have this. Run straight hit the ball off him. And that's what he's got in his locker. He just reads the game quicker than most people. Add to his speed. It's just, what a great player. And we're so lucky to have him.
Oh, yeah, we're unreal. Like, he's one of the best. I made the case on my channel the other day. I'd say he's arguably next to Salah and Alisson, our best signing of the past 15 years. I mean, he's been absolutely incredible for us. And there's a good point here that's been brought in saying, I'd claim that the Premier League this year is the toughest it's ever been. So if Van Dijk beats his old stats, it's just another point to add. And Dean, it's a good point. He's not he's not playing against teams that are weak. If you look at the league, the amount, like, you've got Villa are coming up, Brighton are coming up, the usual top six, Newcastle are improving. I mean, what he's done now, and this is nothing to do with the game today, but if we were to say bring Van Dijk in today, how much money would we be paying for a defender of that quality, given how costly players are nowadays?
Like, talking the hundreds, are easy, hands down, to have the old Van Dijk in terms of age. But to touch on the Premier League, how much it's changed. Well, to go back when we were competing the 90-point mark for the Premier League with Man City, we were getting called, oh, it's a two-horse race, it's a two-team league. Look at it now. There's 5 teams that could be in the conversation. Realistically, it's probably going to be 3. But as it stands, it's anybody's game, and it's crazy. We're a quarter into the season. You got Aston Villa, who's 3 points, 4 points off Man City. And it's crazy. It just shows you how the level of competition and how much it's growing. But yeah, it's just to touch back on Van Dijk. What was he itself? How much did we pay? 75 million.
Yeah,
I know
75.
different. Yeah, with different circumstances, obviously off the pitch with our relationship with Southampton, but even off anybody else, you're talking in your hundreds. How valuable a good centre back is. Gvardiol was £80 million, and as much as he is a good player, he looked awkward today against Chelsea. So to have someone like Van Dijk, the calm, the composure, the passing ability, you saw some of the passes he pulled off today to SALAH. There's not many in the world that can pull off things like that. And that's going forward, never mind the things he does at the back. So to have a Ballon d'Or win, really.
Yeah.
Potential Ballon d'Or winner, I should say. Like, it's not like centre backs ever win it. But you know what I mean? Probably the best performing one. You're not going to get another one like that for the money these days.
No, he's a freak of nature, and the fact that he spent so many years that he did in the Scottish League with Celtic and with Southampton, I mean, it just makes me think if he'd gone to another club. I know United wanted him at one point when he was at Celtic, so imagine if he'd gone to another team earlier, he would have been right up there. I mean, he is one of the best centre backs the league's seen, but he could have been competing for that number 1 spot. And sticking with the defence, just before we get on to it, before I carry on with that, please, everyone, just make sure to like and subscribe. So close to 10k subs, so everyone, please like and subscribe, and remember to get your questions in for the Q&A in the end in the last 15 minutes. And sticking with the defence, Carter, I'm going to pass it to you next. I mean, Dean touched on him earlier, but Kostas Tsimikas, again, me and Dean said in the stream yesterday, we were speaking about the defence. Neither of us particularly wanted Tsimikas to start, but when you saw his name announced, Carter, what were your feelings about it? Do you think he was the right choice for today in hindsight? I mean, when he got announced, what were your thoughts about him being in the team?
I was a bit worried because I think we all probably remember the game at the G-Tech Stadium, or G-Tech, whatever the name of the stadium is, where we sort of conceded 2 or 3 set pieces. I think maybe one was even ruled out, and it was a sort of mad 20 minutes. And I was a bit like, oh, we might struggle here on defending set pieces. But it took obviously ages. I can't remember them having a corner in the first half. But I was a bit worried defensively, because I think he's a good player, but I think he sort of falls into that Luca Digne bracket where if they're taking set pieces, if you're camped around someone else's box, if they're even maybe also Alex Telles, it's that kind of defender where if you're absolutely dominating teams, they're great, but sometimes when you're actually asked to do the defensive work, it's not like, and I'm not going to say Trent's a bad defender because I don't think he is, but I think what Trent offers you is so good that even sometimes if he's an average defender, it's fine, but I don't think what Kostas gives us offensively makes up enough for sometimes his sort of lack of physicality, his lack of speed. Sometimes he switches off. I do think that is sort of a position where sometimes, it's great, but I do think if we're playing, I'm going to be honest, I'm dreading playing City with it if he plays left back, to be honest. If Doku's on his wing, we're going to really struggle. I do not want to see that at all.
No, Doku he's and I completely agree. I think Tsimikas to me strikes me as a player who started his career as a winger and he's just been moved into a fullback position. Like
Yeah.
I completely agree with what you're saying there. Defensive output, it doesn't match what he does offensively, but what he does offensively doesn't match what Trent does. So, Trent's got that sort of balance. I think you're absolutely spot on there. And Alan, I made the case yesterday with Dean in the stream yesterday saying that my only justification for having Tsimikas in the team is his offensive output because Gomez is good defensively, but on the left, he doesn't have that ability to cross a ball in, and we benefited off that massively today. So ultimately, are we still saying Tsimikas is the best person to play in that left back position, or are you still not completely sold on him just on this one game?
I won't say I'm sold on him really, but it's who else do you put there? That's the problem. Gomez can play left back, but I'd probably play Gomez a left back against City more than I would play Tsimikas because I don't think Tsimikas is going to ultimately do something going forward. He might do. He might prove me wrong, but I think against City, if that's what we're talking about now, we need to be solid, and Gomez has got a bit more strength, a bit more pace. Not as Doku pace, but he can obviously hold himself a little bit. And I don't think we really want our fullbacks on either side to be bombing forward and leave us exposed, as I said before. I think one of our downsides is being countered. And City have got a lot of pace. So Tsimikas is not the quickest to get back into position, which is, I think, one of his downsides. But let's be honest, he's a squad player. He's not, if Robertson's fit, Robertson plays, it's not even discussing it. So he just happens to be a squad player. He just happens to be playing because our main guy, our left back, is out injured. So he is what he is. He's good at some things. He's not as good at other things. But let's be honest, if Robertson was fit, he wouldn't be playing. So we got to accept that. But I think in that particular game, I would have Gomez playing against City just to try and be a bit more defensive. And then you could try and be clever then a little bit with City. You could then potentially drop it into three at the back, and mix things up a little bit, just try and, because Guardiola does that, and everyone's going to be focused on Haaland versus Van Dijk. That's going to be the battle everyone's going to talk about. So that's going to give potentially space for the likes of Foden and Grealish if he plays, or Doku who plays. So the guys around have to be switched on defensively, and we all know it's going to be Trent get mentioned, or he's caught out and all that type of stuff. So potentially having Gomez so you could slip it into three at the back, when not in possession, might be something we might want to do going forward. But I think Tsimikas is a good little squad player. He does what he's meant to do. He's there for cover. Just unfortunately, normally we want cover like for a game or two, not 3 or 4 months, which is what might be the case now.
I think I completely agree. I think as a squad player, Tsimikas, there is worse squad players to have in that left back position. And let's be honest, if Tsimikas went to a team that weren't Liverpool or weren't City or Arsenal, I think he'd look great. If he went to a Brighton or something, what can't he do that Kukurea could? He'd be good in a team like that. I think with Robertson, we've set the standard so high that anyone who comes in after him is never going to match that quality, like you say. And he's, as a player, I don't mind him. There is a comment saying, he was good going forward, but there was 3 defensive mistakes. So, as I say, he's a very sort of one-dimensional player. And I think the comparison Carter made there, comparing him to Luca Digne, is spot on. I think that's exactly the type of player he reminds me of. Maybe not as good on set pieces, but he's a luxury player going forward. And Dean, we saw criticism of Robertson this season. And I've said many a times, I think Robertson is still arguably the best left back in the league. I mean, just how important is he to this team now that he's not in it? It's one of those things of you won't miss something until it's gone. So, how important is Robertson now for this team?
Well, if I could imagine Jurgen Klopp in a different embodiment on the pitch, it would be Andy Robertson. He's just full-blooded drive and leadership. As much as Andy Robertson is very good going forward and he's decent going back, I don't think he's the best technically, but he works his arse off. He really does. He has that drive and he never gives up. clearly a leader on the pitch. Like we mentioned earlier, we've got many of them. And I think, well, as soon as he's dropped out of the team, we do notice we've started dropping. Well, we dropped points. But when did he get injured? It was international break, wasn't it?
Yes.
And we've noticed since that last international break, there has been a drop-off in general performance. Obviously, it's not all down to Robertson, but there's obviously been some sort of effect and shift because it's affected that left side of the pitch. He has a dynamic with the front three on that left side, so that is also changed as well. We have to adapt our game around Tsimikas instead, and that's going to be for the next another month at least. So he, like you said, he is the best left back in the league still. I can't really pinpoint anybody else because City don't really play with a left back, do they now? They play inverted. Obviously, Luke Shaw's not great. And I don't think Spurs' left back's great either. I can't really think of anybody else. Zinchenko's the only one with half a shout, but he plays inverted as well. So, hands down, Robertson is the best left back in the league. And obviously, we notice when he's not in there.
Now, we've got two more players to touch on, and we're going to, don't forget, guys, for the last 10, 15 minutes of the stream, we are going to be doing a Q&A, so just any questions you want to ask. I've already got some saved, but literally anything you want to know, just put it in the comments and we'll save it. And Carter, sticking with that left-hand side, I made the controversial claim that I think Jota should be starting in this team over Diaz at the moment. After today's game, am I wrong, or are we still saying that Diaz should be the starter?
I think it's difficult because I think a big issue with Diaz is like his sort of link up with Robertson. Like I don't think it's ever clicked like Mane and Robertson, where they sort of had a real telepathy. And I also think someone because the midfield's changed so much. Like sometimes you need someone to run in and like they want to pick up the pockets. Maybe Diaz does want to, like, because Diaz is quite chalk on your boots, stand on the side of the pitch. Whereas sometimes when you have Curtis Jones, he's happy to go out and stand there. So when you have someone like Jota or Gakpo, you can get them, like, they want to be in those areas. So I think Jota makes sense. And also he probably is, would you maybe say, I'd say him and Nunes are now the two best pressers in terms of like intensity, like physicality. I think if we were going to absolutely hound someone, I'd want Salah, Nunes and Jota. Because Jota, although technically sometimes he falls over the ball a bit and it sort of flicks up, he works, he wins the ball. Like sometimes, like the Spurs game, he did two silly challenges and he got a red card. Sometimes that's going to happen, but I do think he'll just not fluke, but he'll get goals that go in off his backside. He'll get goals that the ball falls to him. It will come off him when he's not looking. He's just that kind of player. And sometimes, especially with Nunes being his finishing not always being consistent, sometimes you just need someone who just knows where the back of the net is. Like, I think not in terms of like style of play, but he really just reminds me of kind of like Hernandez used to play for United, where things just fall to him. Like there's the one where he kicks the ball in off his own face. Like I think they've just got that sort of instinct and they just get goals.
Because I was drunk then, sorry. No, I literally, as soon as you said that, the goal against Space, I just had flashbacks to it. Oh, that made me chuckle. I mean, Alan, I've seen a lot of the comments saying that I'm wrong and Diaz needs to start. Now, I love Diaz, don't get me wrong. I think he's a fantastic player. And maybe it's because we're sort of doing the comparison to Mane. He's never going to live up to that, same as we're doing with Tsimikas, with Robertson. But based on Jota's goal scoring, he seems to be scoring pretty much every other game or every game that he's playing at the moment. Do you agree? Do you think Diaz maybe should just be stuck with? Or do you think that Jota has sort of earned his place? Because it's the same as when Trent came into the team when Klein got injured, and then Trent was so good that he just took over the right back spot. Do you think there's a chance for Jota to do that, or should we just go back to Diaz because the perception is that he's the better player?
For me personally, I kind of don't really think of it as who should be out of those two. I look at it as a front five that we have, and the only one is guaranteed a place, in my opinion, is Salah. And the rest then go horses for courses. So we're playing against a team who's kind of sitting back in. I'd probably play Jota, more because the ball's going to be more likely in and around the penalty area. And you see the couple of goals Jota scored recently, like the one in Toulouse, where he just danced past a couple of people and bang, it's a goal. If we're playing as a team, we're more likely to be a bit pushed back a little bit and you want to break away. I think Diaz is better breaking than what Jota is because he's got more skill, especially further away from goal. But obviously then Jota's got a better goal return. The one thing that Diaz hasn't got really is probably his end product is not as good. But as you say, we're comparing to Salah. To Mane, sorry. And Mane, to me, was Jota and Diaz combined. He could literally play up front and score the goals. At the same time, at the times we break away and the ball goes to Mane and he just run and run and run and run. And probably not as skillful as Diaz on the ball, but his pace would get him out of it. But so I would literally go with who we were playing against really in that scenario. So low block team, I'd probably always go with a Jota. Again, same be away to the City, I'd probably play Diaz to break away. But either one are really, really good players. But depending on who you play in the centre one, I think if you play like a Gakpo with a false nine, I would then have Diaz on the left-hand side and not Jota, because I would want two people with pace to run past Gakpo. Because where we used to play with Mane and Salah and Firmino would always drop in and the two boys would run outside him. When we play with Núñez up front, he's got the pace, so you can potentially get away with putting Jota on the left-hand side, and those two do interact quite well together. So for me personally, it's not a case of who's the first player on the team sheet on that side. I always personally go for who are we playing against.
Well, that's interesting because this is something that I spoke on the stream about yesterday. I asked the question of, do you think we have too many players who can do too many different things up front? I mean, do you ever, because obviously I got the opinion off the guys yesterday, but do you ever look at it and think, oh God, there's too many attackers, they all do different things, it just feels like we're trying too much. Like what's your feeling about the depth in the front? Because obviously it's good, but
yeah, I don't think you cannot have enough too many good players first and foremost. But regards to front five, I like the way we've got a mixture. They can all do different things because we could play certain games. Then what we're trying to do, maybe with the Gakpo particular one game, might not work. So we flick it and stick a Núñez in there. He might just try something a bit different. And there we go, there's the goal. So I think it's good that we've got quite a few different players. Obviously, I don't know whether I obviously didn't see the stream yesterday, whether referring to back what happened against Luton, where he was probably too many times we were trying to force it a little bit. But doesn't have it down to the individual skill. We just basically had a poor game. But there's been sometimes many games we've won 3 or 4 nil or we scored 4 goals, and every one of them scored a goal. So they've all brought something to the team in their own different way. And I think if we had too many of the same, then that would be a problem. Because if you have, like say, a Núñez who plays up front, who just passed and a bit wild, if you had an equivalent to Núñez and you put him on the bench, and then Núñez is not working that day, he's not on it, his touch is not there, and you swap him, put like for like, the defence that we're playing against would just expect the same. Whereas if you then obviously throw in a different player, Jota, a bit more smaller, a bit more of a dribbler, it's another thing for them to deal with. So I like having different varieties in the 5 players. The only one, in my opinion, is to say to play up front or in the front 3 is Salah. The rest, the opposition have no idea who we're going to play. Other than Salah, if I'm an opposition manager, the only one I know is definitely playing is Salah. The other ones I don't know. So how do you prepare for it? Not as easy as it would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the analysis you get, I think that's pretty spot on. I can't look at this as a bad thing with the amount of players we've got. I do sometimes think we try and overthink what we want to do, because obviously Gakpo is a bit more of a false 9, Núñez is a bit more of a direct attacker, and sometimes we have to change the whole sort of team based around which one we're playing. But like you said, it's interchangeable. Everyone can do different things, so it's not in a bad position to be in. Now, we are going to get into a Q&A for the last 15 minutes. What we're doing, I'm going to ask Carter a question, then Alan and Dean, I've got 2 saved for you ready, just so you don't think I'm leaving you out or anything like that.
No.
Carter, I'm going to ask you the question that I asked Dean yesterday. I just want to know who your favourite player is for Liverpool of all time.
So when I was younger, like, it was Dirk Coit. because I just thought he always just ran. Obviously, had a good song, which I might not repeat on here, but I just liked the work rate. I just thought he was like a good player, and I really liked sort of when he went on to final hat trick to win him the league. Like, I really like him, but like probably now, proper player. Like, I think I don't want to say this, but like Gerrard's almost too big to be like he's like Mount Rushmore, but I'd say it's really difficult. Probably Van Dijk. I'd say Van Dijk because I've seen start to finish of him being unbelievable. Like, he's probably the highest level I've seen, apart from maybe Suarez, the highest level I've seen someone play at Liverpool, and he's won everything. So I'd have to say Van Dijk.
Someone in the comments said John Barnes and Peter Beardsley. I met John Barnes a few years ago, actually. He was a really lovely man. He came into my place of work. Alan, same question to you. Favourite ever player for the club?
Oh, that's easy, Steven Gerrard. There's no doubt. I'm 42 now. I know I don't look it. Thanks, guys. But so my first season was Gerrard's first full season. It's not the season when he broke in the year before. So if you remember the goal, you would see when he scored against Sheffield Wednesday when he ran through. That was my first season as a season ticket holder. So I, like Carter said about with Van Dijk, I watched Gerrard as a little boy, or about the same age as him, all the way through his career. And he was just easily the best player I've ever seen. Complete player. Outside of him, as Carter said, he's hard to always, he's the one everyone would say to. So outside of him, it would be between two players. One would be Xabi Alonso, who I just loved. I was heartbroken when he left. And Suarez, same reason. Unbelievable players. Very lucky. I feel a very lucky man to see those teams. Yeah, Suarez, unbelievable player.
We've seen some fantastic players, and like you both mentioned Suarez. That was Dean. That was yours, wasn't it? I think you said Suarez yesterday was your favourite. Now, I'm going to ask you, Dean. In a few words, well, not even in a few words. You can go as in detail as you want with this. Salah has reached 200 goals. His latest striking shows that he scored or assisted in each of our last 15 games. He contributed 16 goals and 3 assists in the run so far. I mean, just how good is Salah, and where does he rank amongst not just Liverpool but the Premier League? Like, how good is he in terms of Premier League history?
He's phenomenal, and he's an absolute monster. He's the best right winger in Premier League history, hands down.
Yeah.
Definitely guaranteed. He's probably I'd say top 3 wingers in general. I think, unfortunately, I have to say Ryan Giggs and then Thierry Henry are probably ahead of him slightly at the moment, just on stats. But if he carries on the way he's going, he could be top 6 goal scorers in the league by the time he leaves. If he ever leaves, if he retires, hopefully at Liverpool. He's on 149 goals in the Premier League, 63 assists for a winger. I know we play with an inside forwards, but still, that's crazy. He's averaging over 20 goals a season, and we're not even halfway through this season yet. He's phenomenal. We never would have dreamt when he signed to him reaching this level. Like I say, he's 11th for top goal scorers, and he's 19th for all-time assists. He's going to be top 5, top 6 at least by the time he leaves. You can't imagine, and it's a horrible thought, but you can't imagine when he does leave how we're even going to get on without him. It will obviously have to happen, but the Premier League and, of course, Liverpool are going to miss him a lot when that does happen.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I've said many times, and I'll ask this question in a minute for you, just before I get onto that. After someone asked me what my favourite player was, I say it sounds daft. My first personal favourite player is John Onorisa. I absolutely love John Onorisa. I think he's a monster. Like, at left back, he was a scary player, and some of those goals he scored, the Everton goal where he goes right and then cuts left, slots it across the box, the free kick against Man United. I adore John Onorisa is my favourite player by far. But going back onto what you said there, Dean, I mean, this is the question that I get a lot of stick for, in my opinion of it. Torres, Salah, Suarez, where are you ranking each of them?
Glad you've asked him that question.
but for what they've done for Liverpool, you have to say Salah first. In terms of pure talent, I'm going to go Suarez for top. He was, like we said before, he was my favourite player of all time, bar the moment he upset me at the Nou Camp. He was just out of this world. Like Salah is out of this world, but on a different level and in a different way. But in terms of the impact for Liverpool, it's definitely Salah, then Suarez, then Torres. Torres broke all our hearts, and he, at the end of the day, he had 2 really good seasons, and then he fell away through either injuries. Obviously, the team wasn't great at the time. Suarez only stayed for a couple of seasons the same. He had 2 really good seasons, but Salah's been good every single season. Even when Liverpool haven't been what they should be, he's still performing, being the best player in terms of output.
Yeah, I mean, see, I always say it goes Torres, Suarez, Salah. I won't lie. I might be being a bit of a daft on there. I don't know. It's just my personal thing. I think you're right in terms of overall ability. Yeah, I think you're pretty spot on. I don't know. It might just be because I've got sort of short-term bias. Carter, question for you. I've got 2 actually. Pop, I've got 2 each pretty much. Carter, favorite Liverpool goal that you've ever seen?
So I'd probably say, do you mean like in the stadium, or do you mean just like seeing?
Just in general, favorite goal, favorite Liverpool goal. You don't have to have been there, but if you want to say the one that you saw in the stadium, you go for it.
I think, I don't know, this is maybe everyone's, because I sort of, the year I started watching was sort of when we got to the Europa League final. Like that's because I was quite young. I'd probably say it's just the Origi one against Everton. Like it's just the stupidest goal you've ever seen. Like all the celebrations, like the time of the year, like sort of in the season. It's probably that one or the Salah against United one where it's like we've won the league. It's probably Origi, but I'd have to say either of those 2. It's Origi, to be honest. Just the stupidest goal you've ever seen to win a derby ever.
Oh yeah, the celebrations off that were phenomenal. Klopp running on the pitch in front of up and hugging Alisson. Now this one's a bit of it goes back to sort of this season a bit more. Do you play for the draw versus City? Carter, I'll ask you this, and then I'll pass it over to you, Alan. Carter, do you think that we should be playing for the draw against City, or do you think that this is a game where we just need to go for it and risk? We've seen what City can do to us when we get at them. What's your thoughts on it?
I think we should play like, as I think I said earlier, like we should sort of set up a bit, not defensively, but I think we should cover ourselves, because if you look today, the amount of times Chelsea hit City on the counter attack, I don't think they're anywhere near as good as they were 4 years ago when it was Sane, Sterling, Aguero. Like I think Haaland's scary, but we've got big enough players to upset him. You think now the goal he scored today was a bit lucky, but without De Bruyne, he's not getting the same service. I think we've got enough pacey, quick players. If Sterling, Jackson, Palmer, and Conor Gallagher are causing City serious problems, I'd love to see him against Salah, Nunez, and Jota, and Szoboszlai or Gravenberch, players like that driving. So I think we play a bit more reserved, but I definitely think we should be going for it. Like Salah always turns up in these ones. Nunez has looked really, really good against City. I think as well being at City is good because there's less pressure on us. Like we can sit back, and they might go. They lost last season to us there. They might start panicking if we go 1-0 up. Rodri maybe puts in a rash challenge. He's on a booking. Like I think it's all for. I think it's this game set up very well for us. Apart from the fact it's at 12:30.
Yeah, I mean those 12:30 kickoffs seem to be happening to us a lot recently. Alan, before I get onto your favourite goal, what's your thoughts with regards to the Man City game? Should we be looking at a draw as a good result, or is this one that we just need to go there and say, you know what, no, we've got this 3 points?
Oh, if you'd offer me a draw now, I'd take it straight away. I'd take a draw. Okay. If you said, it was a draw, I'd have it. But I don't think we should ever go to a game, no matter who it's against. I think you said before, City probably the best team in the world. Let's be honest, they are. So, but I think we should always go to try and win every single game because, you tell me teams come to Anfield and City to try and get a draw, and then we pick them off, and then thinking, oh, why didn't we have a go? I would rather us go there and have a go and try and, like a bit of a boxer, let's swing at them, let's see what they can do. And as Carl said before, I'm watching the Chelsea game, some of the players that Chelsea have are quite pacey, and they just ran through City at times, and City got quite opened up a little bit. I think because City don't really play with fullbacks as much now, and like Kyle Walker, but he sometimes tends to be a centre half, really. They were kind of exposed. So I think, well, why can't we do that? Now, we might get caught on account of ourselves. That's one of our weak points. So we could end up getting a bit of a beating. The City are capable of beating anyone like that. For me personally, I would really rather we go and just have a go at them and just try, and why not go and try and beat them? Because if we score first, then game on. And then we've got the players to go and sort. But if you offer me now a draw, I'd take it.
Yeah, I mean, we're notoriously we have struggles at the Etihad, and it is one of those stadiums that's become a fortress. Let's face it, it's become what Anfield was a few seasons ago, where it's just no one can get anything from there. So
I think they've actually won.
Agree.
Yeah, because I think they won like 13 on the bounce at home in the league. So to say, it's understandable why you go there and try and maybe not lose, but I'd rather go there and try and win and maybe get a draw than go there for try and get a draw and then come unstuck.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I'd be happy with a draw. I think we've gone into it in the best position that we can, given the circumstances. So, I'm happy with that. And before I go over to you, Dean, Alan, favourite goal?
Oh wow, okay. I probably got a couple earlier. I'm so sorry, boys, but back when I was a lot younger, when Owen scored that goal in the cup final against Arsenal, that was I've never been to a game where we got so much of a beating, and to score that goal, I've never celebrated a goal like it. So that was because that was
one.
Sorry. The front flip one,
was
yeah.
The one with the front flip, yeah.
Yeah, to make it 2-1, yeah, because obviously we got battered. We should have been out of sight, and then to score one, and then injury time to go 1-on-1 and score, that was pretty awesome. Origi in the Champions League final, that was like a relief because we knew we'd won it. So that was like wow. But they're 2 goals in cup final, so they're going to be great. So the goal that doesn't get a lot of credit for it is Liverpool played against Hoffenheim in the Champions League qualifier at home, and Emre Can scored a goal. One of the best goals I've seen live in a stadium for pass and move. And I'm sure the guys remember with Klopp like that. That was football. He was giving it all. That was football. So yeah, I'd say that's probably my favourite goal. That's not a cup final, I think. Ooh, sorry.
No, it's fine. Honestly, that's just the start celebrating. Nearly tips over. And Dean, I'll go to you. I mean, 2 for you. I mean, these are questions that I've seen pop up in the chat. These are ones I'm thinking of as well. I want to know your favourite goal, and I want to know what doesn't necessarily have to be for the result. Doesn't necessarily have to be for the fact that we won. But what's your favourite goal that you've ever seen? And what's your favourite match? Like, what match have you looked like? Have you come away from thinking that was just that was it? Like, that was the peak.
Favourite goal is going to be a bit of a left field option on this one. It wasn't the greatest goal, but the reaction, the emotion from it was ridiculous. It was the Dortmund game when Lovren scored right at the end.
Yeah.
I'm going to embarrass myself a little bit now. I cried when we scored that goal. Emotionally outpour, because it was a poignant day. It was Hillsborough anniversary as well. The You Never Walk Alone. It was the start of Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. It felt like the start of something special. And when that goal went in, obviously it was a roller coaster of a game anyway. It was insane. And when that goal went in, I lost it. I did lose my mind. And the fact we come away from that against the Europa favourites at the time. I know we didn't end up winning it anyway, but that game will live long in the memory. In terms of the game, I think we're going to say the Barca game. I think a lot of people would agree with that. It's a once in a lifetime experience. No one went into that game expecting to win, and the fact we managed to turn it around in unique circumstances, missing 2 crucial players against the best player in the world, or the best player ever, arguably. yeah, everything was perfect about that game. The perfect Jurgen performance, the perfect Liverpool performance we all could have dreamt of at the time. So yeah, the Barca game, definitely.
I mean, I think that'd probably be my game as well. It'd either be that one or I don't know. I've got a real soft spot for it was the 13-14 season, the Arsenal, the 5-1.
Yes.
Martin Skrtel getting 2 goals in like 7 minutes, and something about that. I remember that was the first time I watched us and thought, oh my god, we can beat anyone. Like that was a great match. And I think my favourite goals, I know it's a bit of a broad spectrum, the Suarez goal against Norwich, but it's the one where it's like a half volley and it dips.
Just kills it.
Yeah, I love that goal so much. That is my all-time. Just like you said before, he's just the most talented player. I don't know how that happened, but Carter, favorite match, favorite Liverpool game. In Barcelona might be a bit of an easy one, but have you got a particular favorite that you know of?
For me, I'd sort of say the one where Coit scores the hat-trick against Man United. I like the one against Leicester because obviously it's, when they start singing certain songs, like Leicester are quite notorious for that. Trent was just probably, although it wasn't like 7-0, I think that was one of the games like the best we've ever played. Like genuinely, it was like playing it was like men against boys. Genuinely, like we just absolutely bulldozed them. Or maybe I'd say I liked the Bayern one where Mane sort of took the keeper because this was like a really good Bayern team, and I think there was one ball in the box that Matip sort of had to kick into his own goal to stop Lewandowski getting it. But I was just like, this is Bayern Munich who thrashed Arsenal 5-0, who would just knock everyone out, and we've gone there and they've barely laid a glove on us. Like that's probably one of the games where I was like, we're here. So probably sort of those 3 I really, really liked.
Alan, last question to you. Same thing before we go. Favorite game, favorite one where you came out of that thinking that was the best match I've seen. Like I said, it doesn't have to be for the result, but what's your personal favorite?
Yeah. Well, obviously Barcelona, I have to probably admit,
Yeah.
the 4-0 is the one. Everyone says, but that's probably been spoken loads about. But probably the one game I came out of, not so much thinking, oh, we're the best type stuff, or I felt we played the best ever performance, but the one I probably enjoyed the most. Again, I'm a little older than you guys, but back in the 2001 season when we won at Goodison, Gary McAllister scored that last-minute goal. Yeah. I've never danced out of the ground so much. I was unbelievable because it was strange because a couple of minutes before that goal, again, I don't know whether you saw the game live, guys, but we had a chance the exact same minute, a few minutes earlier, where McAllister had a free kick in the same spot and he dinked at the back post and Sami Hyypiä jumped up header and the keeper Gerrard made a decent save. And when it fell in the same spot and you stand there, you think, oh, come on, same again, come on, Sammy. And he hit it and he walked before you could say, what are you doing? It was in the net. And there was no VAR, there was no nothing. You just went crazy, knowing full well you won the match. That was probably my favourite game to leave a ground, I think, because it was like last minute win against Everton. But then, you look at some of the games you've had against United, 7-0 and, 5-0. They're pretty awesome games as well.
We've been blessed some incredible matches. Big Sam and Finn. And you said leaving the ground, and we are going to be leaving the stream now, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I just want to thank Alan, Dean, and Carter for coming on tonight. Bit of an impromptu Q&A at the end, but they flew through it. Just a reminder to hit the like and subscribe buttons. As I say, we are going to be getting close to 10k subscribers soon. We're on about 9.8 at the moment. The number keeps going up, but we can get to 10k by the end of the new year. So everyone just make sure they hit subscribe. There's new streams every single day, 7:30 p.m. UK time. On Tuesday, there's a 2 a.m. UK stream for the American audience. It's post-match streams. And there's also a podcast episode that just came out with myself and Damon 2 days ago, the You'll Never Talk Alone podcast. So make sure you go check that out. And there's content coming out pretty much every other day at this point. There'll be new videos out soon. So from us, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you soon. And now we get the 5 seconds, as I always say, where we get to sit here in awkward silence. So